Year one of the Sean Payton era was a bit rocky, but that was to be expected. He used the offseason to gut parts that he didn't want and to acquire his guys, so it's safe to say 2024 will be more of Payton's vision of the team moving forward, but is that a good or a bad thing? What's crack-a-lack, is your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So welcome back to the Deep Dive series where we take a look at each and every NFL team and project how they will do in the 2024 season. And today, I got the Denver Broncos for you. But before we talk about how they will do, let's talk about what they did do in 2023. So, Bronco country, let's ride. The defense got absolutely cooked in the first month of the NFL season. The Broncos started the year with a close loss to the Raiders, where the offense was very much feast or famine. And then the following week, they gave up an 18-point lead versus the Commanders. Russell Wilson did hit a Hail Mary at the end of the game, but failed on the 2-point conversion to tie the game up. And then week 3 came, and it was by far the lowest point in the season as the defense gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins in what looked like a 12-year-old me playing Madden on rookie difficulty. However, the Broncos would get their first win of the season against the Bears. The defense came alive in the second half, and this proved to be a turning point for the defense. The offense struggled the next 2 weeks in losses versus the Jets and the Chiefs, and this offense went through many droughts, which wasn't helping an improving defense. They did manage to beat the Packers, but the offense was having to settle for field goals in scoring position. They would lose a close game to the Texans, but would bounce back against a crumbling Chargers team. However, in week 15, they would get mollywopped by the Detroit Lions. Sean Payton would explode on Russell Wilson on the sideline, and this would be a sign of things to come. Bailey Zappi would lead a game-winning drive to put the Patriots over the Broncos, and while this didn't eliminate the Broncos from the playoff race, it did make it very unlikely at 7-8. Denver would bench Russell Wilson for the final 2 games to keep him healthy and to avoid a guarantee money injury clause in his contract, and they would finish the season 8-9. The offense was mediocre at best. They could move the ball decently enough, but they settled for field goals in scoring position or just turned the ball over. I'm not going to pretend the defense was much better, but after one of the worst starts in NFL history, they did a good job of creeping back towards average in some regards. However, the pass defense did struggle down the stretch after being absolutely torched by Jared Goff. Real quick, I gotta give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. I absolutely love Underdog Fantasy because I love football, and now that the football season is far and away, it doesn't mean my betting season has to be, because they do all kinds of sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, esports even. They got you covered, whether that's weekly best ball or my favorite, higher lower on player props. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code BROSHMO, then they will give you a first-time deposit up to $250. That's right. That's right. So if you're gonna go and bet with Underdog Fantasy, use promo code BROSHMO, take advantage of this offer, but please bet responsibly and bet within your means. Mr. Unlimited was by far the biggest, most renowned loss of the offseason, but I'd argue Lloyd Cushenberry at center was probably the biggest hit. As I get it, they wouldn't have been able to afford him, so I kind of understand, but it's going to be a big hit, as we'll see with this offensive line. They're pretty barren at center, but they also lost linebacker Josie Jewell to free agency. They traded Jerry Jeudy to the Browns, and they released 4-time All-Pro safety Justin Simmons. But let's talk about what they added. As you'll see, they didn't have a lot of high-profile additions simply because they couldn't really afford it, but I think they had some solid additions both here and there. For instance, Josh Reynolds, added him to the receiving corps. Is he really anything more than maybe a wide receiver 3 or 4? Probably not, but he's going to come in and he's going to compete with some of these younger guys, as we'll see with like Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. So I like adding depth at receiver, especially since you just got a new franchise quarterback. Adding more weapons is always a chef's kiss to me. Looking at some of their other additions here, they bring in like Matt Purr to be some offensive line depth. Cody Barton, which I mean, to be honest, like, linebacker is going to be a really weak spot for him. It truly is. They got Singleton there. They lose Josie Joel via free agency. Jonas Griffith is coming off the ACL injury, and then just recently, like Drew Sanders, he just went down to was it an ACL injury as well? I can't recall off the top of my head, but he's going to be out for maybe the year or at least for an extended period of time. So Cody Barton, while it's like, it's not a sexy sign, it truly isn't. At least it's someone that could come in with relatively good starting experience. So, I mean, I guess that's a positive spin on that. They do bring back Troutman, and they bring in Malcolm Roach, someone who is familiar with Sean Payton. I know Sean Payton, offensive guru, talking about a defensive interior player, but he played for those Saint teams, and he's a quality rotation piece there. So I do like that addition. I don't think they list like Levi Wallace up in here, but they add him to this secondary. They're trying to find that corner two that could be across from Patrick Surtain, as what we thought it might have been Damari. Was it Mathis? They had, I think, Fabian Moreau was a guy that had a lot of snaps there, opposite of Surtain. So like Wallace is like, I'd rather him as depth, but I guess at least you brought in a guy. Brandon Jones, I didn't love Brandon Jones as a Dolphins fan. Fins up, baby. I wasn't the biggest fan of Brandon Jones. However, he gives, I guess, the secondary the safety room some flexibility. I was encouraged by what I saw with PJ Locke last season. So I'm fairly confident it's going to be like Brandon Jones, who in Vic Fangio's defense for the Dolphins last year kind of showed he could play deep. He could play in the box, which I kind of prefer him there, because deep, you get into some sketchy territory, especially with this defense, which we're going to talk about. They run a lot of cover one and cover three, opposed to like, we're talking like quarters heavy defense with Fangio. So you're going to be giving Jones a lot more field to cover, and I don't know if I like that. Actually, I do know. I don't like that. So we'll see. I didn't love the addition, but we'll talk about their safety depth, as like Caden Stearns is also going to be a guy that's going to be in the fold for snaps there. Don't think they mention, they don't mention the trade for John Franklin Myers, which I'm going to be straight up, that's probably their best move of the offseason. They acquire some meat there that can play edge and can kick inside on passing downs. He gives you some legit flexibility. I think he's going to be a guy early down who is going to be there on the outside to come in and play that run, because we're going to look at their edge position, and they got lighter bodies, not necessarily the best run stuffers there. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about what they did in the draft. As with the 12th overall pick, they take Bo Nix. Oh, man, this is my biggest regret. When I did my final predictive mock draft, like for this whole draft season, I've been doing, Bo Nix to the Broncos makes too much sense. He's a Sean Payton quarterback. This is exactly what Sean Payton wants from his quarterback. Some guy that's going to come in, he's going to read the field effectively, he's going to constantly make the right decisions, even if they aren't like big play opportunities. Not to say Bo Nix can't make big plays, he certainly can, but he's going to play within the structure, within the offense, consistently make the right reads, not put the ball in harm's way. He just maybe not have that X factor for when, I guess, crap hits the fan. He is perfect for this Sean Payton offense. And right there, final predictive mock, I bought into the Michael Penix hype, which, to be fair, I should have. Just didn't think it was going to be at Atlanta. But I ended up having the Broncos trade back and take Michael Penix, rather than sticking to my guns and having the Broncos draft Bo Nix. Lesson learned. But I think he's a good fit for Payton's offense, and you get there at 12, and it's like, okay, maybe some other teams aren't nearly as high on Bo Nix, or maybe they see him as a second round quarterback, which, to be fair, the quarterback position when it comes to the draft, its value is, or at least its draft stock gets inflated just because of the significant bump a top 10 to top 12 quarterback just gives your team. It truly, truly does. And if you could hit on that quarterback, it becomes so much more valuable than what other possibilities you could potentially draft there. That's just the case. That's just the truth of the matter. So I like Bo Nix. I like the fit. They get Jonah Ellis in the third round. I was kind of shocked he fell this far, but he was hurt, so he wasn't able to really take part in the offseason draft process. He is undersized, which it doesn't look like it on the field, but ends up measuring height-wise and weight-wise to smaller than I expected, which kind of wild. But the dude was one of the most twitched up edge rushers in this class, and now you're just adding him to a group that's very athletically gifted. And then I love this. I think they moved up here at the beginning of the fourth round to go get Bo Nix's number one target, Troy Franklin, who fell out of day 2 altogether, which was a little bit of a shock for most people. I like that. Does he do anything more than like a Marvin Mims? I think potentially he can. He's got a little bit more leeway with his frame if he's to add some size. So I like the Troy Franklin pick a lot. Reuniting him with Bo Nix, I think was just love that. I love in fantasy football when you can stack a quarterback and a receiver. I love it even more so in the NFL draft. In the 5th round, they take Chris Abrams-Drain. Very fascinating pick. Could end up competing for that starting slot spot early on, because there will be questions like, okay, he's undersized. Can he play on the outside? But he's played on the outside a majority of his career in the SEC, and he has been phenomenal for 2 or 3 years. He's a former wide receiver, so he's got legit ball skills. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for him to compete at corner 2 on the outside. But in terms of his size, could pigeonhole him into the slot, which I think it's fine. I mean, 5th round was a very good value on him. They get Audric Estime in the 5th round as well. Big bruiser out of Notre Dame there at running back. So that was fascinating. I mean, I thought he was going to go a little bit higher than this. I had I think an early 4th round grade on him. So they add him to the running back room. So I'm very fascinated because, I mean, I feel like this could mean Javonte Williams might be playing his final year there. I know there's been rumblings from camp that Williams might not even make the roster. I doubt that. I truly do. I think they just ride out the contract because there's been moments where he has been very good. It's just unfortunately he had the injury early on in his career. And then a couple of 7th round picks, Devon Vele. Dude's 26 years old there at Utah, but I get it. Good size, good athleticism, but probably just a practice squad player. Nick Gargiello, center/guard there at South Carolina, probably is going to compete for that starting center position, though I don't think you want to throw a rookie, a 7th round rookie at that out there to the Wolves. And I think part of me, I'm going to take a quick look because I'm fairly confident. I can't remember if it was him or Jacob Monk from Duke that I actually liked better at guard than center. It may have been actually both guys, but let me just go back to my notes on Nick here. Yeah, I have him. I have him graded out as a better guard in the NFL than center. I think I had his best games were when he was playing guard. Like, let's look into here. Yep. I just said, like, some of his best games were at guard rather than at center. South Carolina did move him around quite a bit, as he had 300 some snaps at guard while having 450 at center. But it'll be fascinating to see if he just makes the team, just because, well, center position's kind of barren. We'll talk about who I have started at center, but first, let's go ahead and talk about this coaching staff. Sean Payton is going into year 2 of his tenure here in Denver, and if you're unfamiliar with Sean Payton, what rock you been living under? This man coached the New Orleans Saints for 15 years. He has a Super Bowl victory. Now, when it comes to his scheme, he is a Bill Walsh disciple. So yes, there are a lot of aspects of the West Coast offense. I mean, so much so that a lot of people have coined Sean Payton's offense as the Gulf Coast offense. And yes, there's a lot of dink and dunk, nickel and dime type of nature when it comes to the passing game. But you're going to see a lot more from shotgun. You're not going to see the run game get supplemented or replaced for the short passing game. Matter of fact, Sean Payton, typically his run game ranks in the top 10 to 12 every year. He's very effective and very efficient when it comes to running the football. So it's more of this like pro style, like I guess multi-power run game. He likes to incorporate those power concepts, counter, inside zone. So that's really what to expect here. He's not afraid to take those shots deep. And I know in the past, at least when it came to the Saints, he typically likes his receivers to be big and strong, which you get that with like Cortland Sutton and whatnot, but he does have a little bit more speed to work with. But for the most part, when it comes to this system, it's, hey, get positive yardage. Get positive yardage. We will use all 3 downs to get that first down if need be. You're not going to necessarily see a ton of chunk plays, though they are there when it comes to this offense. His OC is going to be Joe Lombardi, same guy as it was last season. Again, for the most part, this is Sean Payton's offense. So Lombardi's just kind of here for the ride, but he was formerly the OC for the Chargers. Prior to that, he worked under Sean Payton for like 12 years. He did have a brief stint as the Lions OC, but again, this is Sean Payton's offense through and through. Now, down below, you see my grades for the head coach or for the coaching staff here when it comes to the run offense, pass offense, run defense, pass defense. And I'm pretty high on Sean Payton, as deservingly so. Deservingly so. When it comes to Vance Joseph, it's a bit more of a mixed bag. Now, I get it. A lot of people were calling for Vance Joseph's head that first month of the year, especially after that loss to the Miami Dolphins. Fins up, baby, fins up. But I really do think that this unit got better as the year went on. Like some things maybe broke down when it came to the passing game later in the season, but now that they've acquired a few parts here and there, I don't know if this offense is really going to take a massive jump, but I do think Vance Joseph gets a little bit of a raw deal here, but I do think he's probably one of like the bottom of the league when it comes to defensive coordinators. I think he's probably around that like 20 to 25 range if I had to rank him. So what to expect here with Vance Joseph? Very much like an attacking 3-4 defense. They likes to put pressure on the quarterback. This is a team that really loves to blitz. Last year, their blitz rate was 35%. That was 5th in the league. He's typically in that top 5 every year that he was like a head coach or a DC. And when it comes to the coverage, you're gonna see man coverage. You're gonna see cover 3. You're gonna see cover 1. You'll see the occasional cover 6. There's a lot of like pattern matching when it comes to this defense. So you're gonna see a little bit of flexibility here, but you for the most part, you're gonna see a lot of man coverage. I mean, shoot, man, cover 3 after 10 yards, it's essentially man coverage. So that's really what to expect with Vance Joseph. I do think he's kind of on the hot seat here if this offense can't really turn a corner. that they might look for a different option there. But let's talk about some of the other parts of this coaching staff, as Paul Kelly is the assistant head coach here. And then looking at some of the defensive coaches, you got Jim Leonhard, who is the defensive backs coach for the Broncos. You might remember him as a player for the Ravens and the Jets before injuries really screwed his career. He also was a DC for Wisconsin, even was the interim head coach back in 2022. They also have Joe Vitt, who's been around the league for a hell of a long time. We're talking decades. But going to this offense, Pete Carmichael. We got a Pete Carmichael signing. Oh man, he didn't have a great run in New Orleans after Sean Payton left as the OC, the play caller. But now he's back here under Sean Payton's wing as an offensive assistant, reunited, and it feels so good. And then you got a few guys that used to be actually players under Sean Payton, as we got Zach Sheriff, who used to play guard there for the Saints back in the day. He's going to be an offensive line coach. You got David Webb, who actually didn't play for Sean Payton, but he was formerly a player as back in like 2022, because he had that start at the end of the year against the Eagles for the Giants, and I think almost won that game, which is kind of wild because the Eagles, I think they kept their starters in because they were trying to for like playoff seeding and whatnot. And he like came out and had like a decently good game and almost beat the Eagles. And that was the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. So that was kind of wild. Wild times, man. The NFL. Sometimes you gotta expect the unexpected. But also you go to like their special teams. You got Chris Banjo here, man. I'm a sucker for players that are now coaches or assistants. He's a special teams assistant. Another guy that's was around the league for quite some time. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about this stinking offense. And down below, you're going to see my grades for every position group. So let's go ahead. Let's get started with the quarterback position, because I got a D- grade there. And a large part of that is because Bo Nix is a rookie. Rookie quarterbacks typically struggle their first year in the NFL as they get acclimated to the speed of the NFL. Very few quarterbacks hop in, or rookie quarterbacks hop in and look like CJ Stroud. So what I'm saying is just keep reasonable expectations for Bo Nix. Listen, I'm going to say the same thing when we get to the Chicago Bears about Caleb Williams, and he was the first overall pick. These are rookie quarterbacks. Keep reasonable expectations. But Bo Nix truly is a great fit for Sean Payton's offense. I remember just something that he got really good at was his decision making. At Auburn, Nix was awful decision maker. When he gets to Oregon in 2022, it's not like it was great to begin with. Like, I remember watching that Georgia game. We did a watch along, and he had just a really bad interception to start the game off. And I was like, same old Bo Nix. But he got better as the year went on. And then 2023 was kind of that crescendo as he really acclimated himself into that offense, played within that offense, was very good about, hey, if my first read is open, I'm going there, even if it's just 4 yards. We're out here to get positive gains. But he was so good at just not putting the ball in harm's way, which is a big thing when it comes to Sean Payton. Get positive yards, don't put the ball in harm's way. We don't necessarily need those chunk plays. So, yeah, keep reasonable expectations with Bo Nix. He's a rookie, but I do like the fit here. When it comes to his backup, you got Jarrett Stidham there. He's a very average backup in the NFL, in my opinion. Zach Wilson's also here, so if you're in the Denver area, hide your moms. But we did see some bright spots from Zach Wilson, but I'm kind of out on him being a future NFL starter. At this point, it's like, okay, can you maybe be a high-end backup? So, all intents and purposes, Bo Nix, you are the starter, and let's not pretend that there's a high-end backup on the roster. There's not. So, yes, they're one of the worst position groups in the NFL. Going to running back, because I feel like Javonte Williams, there's some smoke out there like, oh, man, I don't know if Javonte Williams is even going to make the roster. I have my doubts. I expect Denver, unless he's like god-awful in camp, and I don't think that's going to be the case, I think they're just gonna ride, like they're just gonna ride the wheels out, because this is his final year here in Denver. He was drafted in 2021, so 21, 22, 23, 24, final year of his contract. I feel like they're just gonna ride him till the wheels fall off. Though we will see probably a healthy amount of like Jaleel McLaughlin, who was a really good UDFA out of Youngstown State. It just emerged last season. He's going to be very much in this rotation. They got Samaje Perine. I feel like he's going to get phased out. He's really just kind of like a third down back, receiving back. I feel like he's going to get phased out of this offense. Then Audric Esme, you got the power back. I feel like he's going to get a decent amount of touches. So it's going to be interesting. But all in all, you look at that group and you're like, yeah, there's not really a stud there or a bell cow or whatnot. So yeah, they're kind of in like very average group in the league. I got a C- grade for this running back group. Like Javonte Williams, hopefully he can stay healthy. Again, just doesn't feel like the same player after getting hurt back in, was that 2022. And then let's move to the offensive line, because this offensive line is still hella good. It may have one glaring hole, but it's still hella good. Garrett Bowles, still really good. I remember when he started his career, it was so many holding penalties, so many penalties in general. And that part of his game just kind of got phased out. And then you're like, yes, no, this is exactly who you want. I still think he's one of the, I would say one of the top pass protectors in the league. He's a very good run blocker as well, or at least a very solid one. But I think they might end up moving on from him after this season. This is his final year of his contract, and I think Sean Payton is going to kind of phase some of these old heads out. We saw that with just Justin Simmons, who, yeah, did the play fall off, but a little bit like from like, okay, maybe you're not elite anymore, but you're still probably like a top 10 to 12 safety in the NFL. And they were like, yeah, no, let's get off some of these older guys who have expensive contracts. So that it won't surprise me if this is Bowles' last year in Denver. This is a team that does need to get cheaper anyway. They got Ben Powers there, who honestly, if he's like your fourth best offensive lineman, even third best offensive lineman, you're probably in good shape. He's a very above average player, very, I would say, solid starter. Quinton Miners, man, golly, this guy is, hello, he's here. He's like a top 5 guard in the NFL. I remember the offseason draft process for him, because he got the Senior Bowl invite, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy from Wisconsin Whitewater? And how the hell am I going to get that type of tape? Fun fact, I did not get that tape. So my whole eval was based on what he did at the Senior Bowl. And when you are a prospect coming from a lower level of competition, to go to the Senior Bowl and just look like you belong among this group, it goes a long way. And then he comes out and has a phenomenal pro day, and it's like, yeah, no, I would be willing to roll the dice on this cat. And fun fact, they ended up winning, because this cat's really good. He's going to get paid a lot of money in the future. I'd argue he's one of the best guards in the NFL right now. And then Mike McGlinchey, solid starter, another guy, a little bit older, but a very solid starter. I would say an above average run blocker, as well as I would say he's just an above average blocker. He is, hey, we need a good tackle too. He is a good tackle too. However, it's like you get to the middle of that line, and I'm going to go with Luke Wattenberg. He's been here for a little bit. They drafted him in the 5th round in 2022. I actually kind of liked him coming out of Washington. He was undersized, but I liked him. I don't know if he really has the power profile, though, for a Sean Payton run game. So it's going to be very fascinating, but I can definitely say the guys behind him, I don't know if they have the power profile for a Sean Payton run scheme. So it's going to be fascinating, man. I think center could end up being a revolving door, but it's going to be the obvious weak spot. here for the Broncos when it comes to their offensive line. We'll talk about their depth in a sec, but let's talk about the receivers. Courtland Sutton, yeah, he's a starter here, man. Hell yeah. He had I would say a solid season last year where he had 700, almost 800 yards last season. He was fairly solid at the contested catch point, which is good when Sean Payton loves his bigger, more physical pass catchers. Would like to see the drops get better, but this is also a cat that's kind of been like ravaged by injury. It's kind of cost him bits and parts of his career. We can say the same thing about Tim Patrick, who's still on the roster here. But Sutton is your number one guy. I'm going to go with Josh Reynolds as their other starter there on the outside. He's getting paid like $7 million a year. So yeah, I think he's going to end up being their starter. He is shown to be a very solid, I would say, wide receiver 3. I think he's a very solid third option in the NFL, a guy that can work inside and out. So I do like the flexibility of that. And then, man, I'm really gonna go out on a limb here because it felt like at some points last season, Sean Payton just hated Marvin Mims, despite him being very productive when on the field. Like, throw this guy the football. So I'm going to go with him in the slot, man. They're going to use him as like a vertical slot player, which is going to be interesting because Troy Franklin is kind of similar in that mold, though I think Franklin can play on the outside. Like, he's got a decent release package. So I think like Troy Franklin's going to be involved here. Dude, Tim Patrick, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be very involved. So let's actually just talk about the depth on this squad. As you got Tim Patrick there, you got Troy Franklin, you got Marvin Mims, all are very good vertical threats that bring something a little bit different here and there. I think Franklin's a very good route runner. You can say that about Mims as well. Mims brings a little bit more like quicks and twitch. Tim Patrick coming off the injuries, can he be that vertical threat still? I don't know. We'll see. Currently at wide receiver 6, they got Devon Vele. Out of Utah, he's big, he's fast, he's 26. He's a grown man at this point. So, like, I mean, he could make the roster, but I mean, come on, Sean Payton loves him, little Jordan Humphrey. That's got to be the wide receiver 6. That's got to be the wide receiver 6. Jalen Virgil, Brandon Jones, I think are like long shots to make the roster. Philip Dorsett, maybe he can make the roster as like a kick returner. I think that's about his only chance. So, like, yeah, you don't really have any elite weapons. You got guys that are hoping to, like, kind of, like, prove themselves. Like, Courtland Sutton, please stay healthy and catch the football better. Tim Patrick, just stay healthy. Josh Reynolds is kind of like one of the more, at least recently, one of the more proven guys. So, yeah, does that make you feel good? Probably not. So, I don't know, man. We'll see. That's why I'm a little bit lower on the weapons for this squad. Let's jump to tight end real quick. Adam Troutman. Sean Payton loves him, Adam Troutman. Of course, Troutman's going to be the starter here. It'll be interesting to see what some of the guys behind him, like Greg Dulcich, kind of had his year ruined by injury. They might just use him as like a more of a receiving tight end, which he should be anyway, but a guy that can be a nightmare up the seams. So hopefully he can stay healthy. Lucas Kroll is going to be interesting for this squad. Someone that came out of like Pittsburgh that had traits, but I don't know. We'll see. Don't know much about Nate Atkins at tight end, but Dylan Leonard, he was Duke. Didn't really do much there. Thomas Yasmin. Man, they included Yasmin as as like an international pathway. That's interesting. He was at Utah last year. Huh. Yasmin's all right. He's all right. I could see him making this team if they hold on to 4 tight ends. I think he's going to be in contention there. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think he was a part of the International Player Pathway Program, where they like bring in guys that are from different countries who've played maybe a little football, or they're coming from different sports to make it here in the NFL. So that's very fascinating. Going to the offensive line. You got Matt Pert there. He's probably going to be their top backup when it comes to the tackle position. Quinn Bailey couldn't really tell you much about, though. I mean, watch out for Alex Pizlowski. Coming out of Illinois, was a dude that I think was initially supposed to be in the 2022 class, got hurt during the offseason draft process, returned to Illinois, but he's got some potential to be a high-end backup there. They also signed Frank Crum from Wyoming as a UDFA, someone who tested really well at the combine, but like he's very unpolished. Like he is years away from being a starter in the NFL. I'm just gonna say that. When you go to the interior, I'm glad that they list Nick G out of South Carolina as a guard, because I think he's a better guard in the NFL. But when it comes to the center group, he certainly can compete for that starting spot. Alex Forsyth, I think, is just not built for the NFL. I had a lot of my doubts on him in that 2023 class coming out of Oregon. Sam Mustipher, he's been around the NFL for a little bit. He'd probably stick to this roster just because he's got a hell of a lot more experience, starting experience, than guys like Forsyth and Wattenberg. Calvin Throckmorton, he's an adequate backup. That's about it. Montre Jacobs, he was a South Carolina or South Florida player, right? He was a project coming in at 6'6", 315, but I think he had like 34-inch arms, really good movement skills, but very unpolished. So that's going to be interesting. He's probably still a practice squad player, but I'm intrigued. They got Michael Burnett here. He's going to be one of the few teams that still hold on to a fullback. We will see him utilized as such. So maybe they don't keep 4 running backs. They probably will. I'm kind of curious, can Blake Watson make this roster? Because I think there's a potential of him being just better Samaje Perine, just offering that unbelievable receiving ability in the passing game. He also brings good return skills. Formerly of Old Dominion, last year was in Memphis, had a really good year. So I'm kind of curious if he makes the roster. Ultimately, he's just better. Tyler Beatty, I remember him coming out of Mizzou. I think Watson's just a better version of that. So maybe he can make the roster, but very much so. I think this is going to be Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin with maybe a sprinkle of Audric Estime. But let's go ahead. Let's move to this defense. So I'm not that high on this defense, as you see, and I think I actually want to start with the secondary here, because people are going to look at that coverage grade, D-, and be like, well, Patrick Surtain's on this squad. I'm sorry. One man cannot do it by himself, and I truly think he is by himself. Listen, Patrick Surtain, one of the best corners in the NFL, in my opinion. He is a top 10 corner. Easy. There's not a lot around him. Let's be honest, folks. Levi Wallace is like a corner 3 or 4 in the NFL. And there is not a lot of people that are going to be contending for that cornerback 2 job. I'm just going to say that. You look at the slot position and Jaquan McMillan. You saw a lot of positives with Jaquan McMillan. However, anytime this teams got into the red zone, he got eaten up. This man allowed 8 touchdowns last season. Yeah, kind of a rough go. So I'm kind of curious if perhaps maybe like when they get closer to the red zone, he's someone that's going to get subbed out. And maybe you see like a Chris Abrams drain come in. Maybe they opt for a bigger type of player there in the slot. Maybe like Caden Stearns, or maybe you put like PJ Locke or Brandon Jones there. So they opt for a safety around the red zone. So, I mean, you can mitigate that. I still think McMillan's going to be the starter for now. Hopefully that stays the same, because I think there was a lot of promise from him last season. I really don't like the safety group. Straight up, man. Brandon Jones I think he is a good athlete with terrible recognition. Like, just terrible awareness. I don't like his fit or this defense. Like, if at least if you're gonna I don't like his fit if you're gonna expect him to like play deep. Like in cover 1, he's gonna be that deep safety. I hope not. In cover 3, you're gonna have him cover in the middle of the field, like downfield. I hope not. But it's not like they have many other guys on this roster that really can do that a ton. Like PJ Locke's fine, he's good. Like I just think he's really good coming downhill, in my opinion. That must come from playing a ton of special teams, coming in and being that gunner. So even then, it's like PJ Locke, solid season last year. Do I think he's anything like special? Probably not. But I do like his ability around the line of scrimmage. So it's like, then who the hell are we playing deep here? It's got to be Brandon Jones. Because like, what is it going to be? Caden Stearns? Probably not. Like he's another guy that's a good athlete, but it's funny because Brandon Jones, Caden Stearns, they were once a safety duo there at Texas, like a long time ago. And like, I feel like they were very much the same player, but I think Jones was much more put together when it came to upstairs. Like Caden Stearns, man, it still feels like, man, the game's really slowing down for him. Like it still feels like the game's just moving too fast for him, I should say. So it's like, I just don't like the parts of this secondary. Let's talk about the depth. Let's just go ahead and do it. When it comes to, let's talk about the rest of the safety room. For the most part, unproven. You got JL Skinner there, who had an injury last year. We only saw parts of him. But he's a guy that's firmly a box player that borderline you might have to actually convert to linebacker, given the Drew Sanders injury. You got Turner Yell coming out of Oklahoma. Depth. He's depth. I hope he's nothing more. Couldn't tell you much about the other guys here listed on the roster, like Devin Key and such. When it comes to the corner position, like, okay, Chris Abrams-Drain, I think is going to be interesting. Can he win a starting job, whether it's in the slot or on the outside? I really liked him coming out of Mizzou. So that's someone to be on the look for. Riley Moss is just a good fit for this defense. Very disciplined. Maybe he can challenge Levi Wallace. I think there's some potential there. And then Damari Mathis just kind of like crumbled as a player last season, unfortunately. He had a rough go at it. I think fairly early on actually in the season. He got torched so early in the year. Like, yeah, look at these games. Allowed 95 yards and 2 tutties against the Raiders. Allowed 83 yards in tutty against the Commanders. Only allowed 23 yards against the Dolphins. But to be fair, the Dolphins were literally running up the score. You had the Bears. He allowed 61 yards and a touchdown. And I mean, following week against the Jets, he allowed 61 yards, and he would eventually be pulled as a starter soon after that. Like, yeah, I mean, at this point, he might end up just being depth, or I don't know, maybe he has a resurgence and he can show that promise from his rookie season and just maybe work his way back into the starting lineup. I mean, there may be something there to that, but outside of that, I'm a little unfamiliar with some of the other guys. Reese Taylor, I think, was from Ole Miss back in the day. Couldn't really tell you much about him. Quentin Newsome, coming from this class. Quentin Newsome, I think he was the Nebraska player. Could be getting that wrong. I don't know. We're so far removed from the 2024 NFL draft. I have a hard time remembering who some of these UDFAs were, but let's talk about that front seven. How about it? The linebacker core, I think, is in trouble. Alex Singleton, very much one of your old school thumpers. He's going to be very limited with what he can do in coverage. Just doesn't have movement skills like that. Cody Barden is probably more of a depth player at this point. He's had a couple of years as a full-time starter and really has just been kind of mid at best. And just unfortunately, they're not going to have, I think, adequate depth there. Like Jonas Griffith he missed like most of last year with the ACL, right? And then Drew Sanders, he's missing this year with, well, at least presumably going to be missing most of this season with his injury. Justin Stranad, formerly out of Wake Forest, really just a special teamer at this juncture. They have some UDFAs here, like Level Bailey. Oh, where were you out of? Or is it Leavell? Fresno State. Okay, I think he was a little undersized in terms of his measurements and whatnot. But yeah, man, this is probably one of the worst linebacker groups in the NFL currently. And I mean, that's not even to say like Drew Sanders' injury really would have altered that. I think that they probably still would have been a bottom unit. When it comes to the defensive line, I think some people are going to be a little bit mad that I got John Franklin Myers here listed as an interior. But when I put these together, I put defensive stars. These are the guys that I think are going to get the most snaps this upcoming season. And John Franklin Myers, I think, is going to be on the field a lot. He's someone who is going to be he's going to be playing edge early, and they're probably going to kick him inside on passing downs just because they don't have some of their guys out there on the edge. They just don't have the size to be efficient in the run game. Like Nick Benito, undersized, more of a guy that'll like twitched up and go out and get the passer. Not good in the run game. I think his missed tackle rate was like 34%. Baron Browning, who's actually been a solid like penetrator when it comes to the run game. He's former off-ball linebacker. He's around 240. So John Franklin Myers gives you much more size to be able to set the edge. Jonathan Cooper, a very solid pass rusher, but I don't think he's like a high-end guy. I think he's more of like an edge 2. He had like 55 pressures last year. So I think he's a good complementary piece to the rotation here. Baron Browning, you're kind of hoping he kind of breaks out, but like teams kind of figured him out the last couple of years where it was like, okay, this is a dude that's real quick, does a good job of cornering the edge. They were able to scheme around him, and he just kind of became a little less efficient. I want to see him just better utilize, like whether it's like add some pass rush moves to your arsenal and whatnot. Maybe just scheme up some things a little bit better, which, I mean, they got the horses, they got the versatility along the defensive line to do that. And then you have Zach Allen, who, golly, man, he's been a very good signing for him. He's a plus run defender. He's a plus pass rusher. Actually led the team in pressures last season with 60. You got DJ Jones, who will be playing that interior role, I think, on early downs. And then when they want to shift to more passing situations, that's when John Franklin Myers will kick inside. But let's look at the rest of the depth of this defensive line, as I do think Malcolm Roach is going to be heavily used in the rotation here. I think those are going to be kind of your four guys: DJ Jones, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, and Malcolm Roach. And then the rest of the guys are really guys that are going to be scratching and clawing just for playing time. Matt Henningsen was someone out of Wisconsin, undersized, but had some good pass rush tools. Jordan Jackson was more of a developmental player coming out of Air Force, so I don't know how far along he is in his development. Ronnie Perkins was kind of a cast-off from New England coming out of Oklahoma. You got Daryl, Nachami out of Maryland, who he's fast, he's quick. But yeah, man, I mean, they got guys, but I mean, the depth isn't anything remarkable. I mean, it's really going to be Nick Benito serving that DPR role. They do add Jonah Ellis, which I'm really excited about, but how involved does he get into the rotation here at edge? Truly, Thomas Akum, more of that, a bigger body guy, gives them a little bit more girth there at the edge, but like they just don't have I would say an elite player on this defensive line. There's not a guy that I would say is a top 15, top 20 player at edge on the defensive interior, which kind of leads to most of my grades here for the defense, why they're in the lower, more of the bottom part of the league when it comes to the pass rush, just because, I mean, we're in today's NFL, there's a lot of good pass rush units with a lot of good depth. So, like, even these units that are like, oh, there's quality players there. If you're kind of missing that elite guy, then you're going to be in the bottom half of the league, at least when it comes to, like, grades and rankings and whatnot. But let's get to what you're here for. You want to know how this team will do in 2024. So, I have the Denver Broncos with the 4th toughest schedule in the NFL. So, wins might be hard to come by, but let's talk about the ceiling, or at least the potential ceiling of this team as they open with the Seahawks, which are kind of in a mini rebuild themselves. I think that's a winnable game. Maybe the Russ revenge game won't go well for Russ, so maybe there's a win here. I think the Bucs are probably a winnable game as well. The Jets, if they're healthy, I don't know if they can win that, and they're coming off a mini bye. So a longer week. I do think that the Broncos are going to be competitive in this division. So let's say they split games with the Raiders and the Chargers. And I mean, they showed that they could beat the Chiefs last year, that they got the formula to. So I'm willing to even give them a win over the Chiefs, especially since the last week of the year. Maybe the Chiefs wrap up or solidify whatever seed they're going for, and they end up resting their starters. So let's give a few other wins here that I think are plausible, like against the Panthers, the Saints. I think sneakily, I mean, the Colts are coming off their bye as well, but being at home for Denver, I think is kind of clutch. So I think that these are reasonable. Maybe one against the Falcons. So I think these are reasonable. So 10 wins. 10 wins, I think, is probably the ceiling for this squad. But I do think there's going to be some struggles with the defense. There's going to be some bumps. I mean, let's be honest, this defense, historically terrible start to the season in 2023. And they were able to creep back towards mediocre, honestly, at best. Rookie quarterback at the helm. I think there's going to be some letdown with this squad. So I think more realistically, they are definitely, like, at the very least a year away. With the tougher schedule, I got them going 6-11. I think that's probably reasonable. Maybe they can make it like 7-9. Well, no, that would be 7-10. I think that's also in the wheelhouse, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to plant my flag at 6-11. You go ahead. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. How do you feel like this Denver Bronco team will do in 2024? If you want more content, maybe more of these deep dives, check out some of these videos down here. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.